right, welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road where we are joined by the one and only John Stewart. Welcome back to the show, John.
I thank you, Jack. Hello, everybody. Hello, my Cosmic Road family. Hope everyone's well.
Well, John has just kicked the hornet's nest, as he says, talking about a giant UFO. Theoretically, this is Ross Coulthart's giant UFO, or at least a giant UFO that is buried under some facility. In fact, you mentioned multiple of them, and that's one thing I want to talk to you about because your original post on this mentions multiple UFOs. But then you follow that up with some other information, and it seems like from those posts and also from our emails that you have various sources that you've been talking to about this. And because you've mentioned a couple of locations to me that weren't in the original post, and you've mentioned one of those locations in a follow up post. So I don't know how much of that you can get into, but it's really interesting that you do have these various sources. So can you lead us through
Yeah,
who's talking to you, what they're saying, and how
sure.
you prioritize their information? Yeah.
Yeah, after 6 years of investigating the alien interview, I have um, eight, technically nine sources. I'll leave it at that are really dialed in, have been dialed into the past of intel, military, but specifically, of course, the alien phenomenon, the UFO phenomenon, the recovery and concealment phenomenon, Aquarius, you name it. And some, I would call them ancillary people that, you know, that are on the periphery of people who are in these programs. And it gives them a little bit more latitude to speak to me because they're not directly contradicting their security oaths. I don't know if I'm speaking correctly. Um, so it was in 19, a very quick story. My wife and I and her cousin are at a very high scale. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying a very nice hotel near my house, upscale bar and restaurant. We're having seafood in this tall, good looking, but weathered, you know, like a, like, you know, like a, he wasn't like a male model, but he was just a good looking guy in his 40s. And he makes a comment to my wife's cousin, maybe hitting on her or being chatty as he walks by the table. And they started a conversation. We started a conversation. He sat down and started talking with us. And he was a gig worker, a very high end IT professional. And he was brought in by Discover Card, which is the headquarters, is 2 minutes from my house in Deerfield. And we started talking, drinks, food. We went into the bar later. Just a really interesting, smart guy. And my wife tells him, "Oh, my husband's doing a documentary on aliens," and he was like, his whole composure changed. And just very quickly, this is not a long story. He's talking about the things that he did, heard, and he starts to illuminate, and just a real basic story starts to illuminate that he might have done IT work at a facility where they had a crashed UFO that was broken to four pieces. The pieces were so large that they had to build some type of structure over it. He did not say 7-story building or some of the things that I would like to talk about what Ross may have inferred, maybe not. He just said that to cover it up, to cover these four pieces, they had to build a structure. Now, that could have been a temporary, structure or whatever, but that's what he said. And he said it was in South Australia. He gave me a name from years ago. I never researched this story, folks. I had so much on my mind in 2019 that I remember him saying womb something, and I thought Woosbury, Jack, because I'm half mentally crazy. I have ADD. I've told everybody this. I don't remember, 5 minutes later what happened. So I always thought Woosbury, something like that. Anyways, so and the last thing he said was, I just want to tell you, mate, he was an Aussie. I just want to tell you that Pine Gap has this massive antenna and it's not above ground. It goes into the ground. What does that tell you? And my wife and I looked at him. I'm like, I don't know, but he's speaking very cryptically now. So whatever that means, why you would build an antenna, and that's why I asked him, and he raised his eyebrows like he couldn't tell me directly why they built this massive antenna in the ground at Pine Gap, not above the ground. So this is 5 years, 6 years, with 19 to today is 6 years. So Money Penny puts this story out. I like folks, if you're my friend, I will defend you to the death. Ross Coulthard is my friend. I consider him a colleague. We have been journalists, investigators on 2 stories. The Lockheed firefight. Ross had, I had. We had a bond to keep it, closed in until I got those. My phone went wacky and my emails were stolen. I went public, violated my agreement with Ross, but he didn't have a problem with it. I love Ross. He's a gentleman. He's very nice to me. We have a great relationship. So when Money Penny comes out and challenges Ross, I raise my eyebrow. And all of a sudden she puts out that a 500 to 700 foot UFO crash landed or hard landed on a golf course. And in a matter of weeks, this is her words, the government allocated funds, made construction plans, poured 400,000 yards of concrete. I'm doing the math on myself because I've been a lackey on massive strip mall projects in the Chicago area because I was good friends with a real estate developer. Fucking 500 feet square is 400, 500, 600,000 yards of concrete on a golf course that must close down immediately, and no one around the golf course, suburbia in Nebraska, saw this 500-foot craft. I mean, just absolute, as I will use Ross's terms, bullocks. So I start thinking to myself, wait a minute, what did this guy tell me? South Australia, wow. Ross Coulthard, I think, said it was out of the country, but I'm not sure about that. I'm in a feeding frenzy now in my mind. And I go on Google and I'm like, Woosbury or Woosme base Australia, and I get Woomera. And I'm looking at it and how large it is. I'm like, this is what this guy was talking about. And then I put put together my first post, but I called one of my contacts, and I won't use the language, but he said Ross is a blank. His information is a counterintelligence operation, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. I went, wow. Okay. So I'm going to scrap Ross's information right now, trying to be a good investigator. And I start looking at this Woomera base. It's massive, which makes sense to me. I thought, if you're going to bury something that no one else saw it come down, right? Or else we'd be flooded with stories for years since the 80s that this came down in a remote, desolate place. The Woomera base is, I think I read 400,000 square acres. I mean, crazy that this ties in with this Woosbury word that this Australian IT guy claims he knows what went down there. And so I put this out, in a little coded and with a little anagram. And I'm like, you know what? Before I put my foot totally in my mouth, let me go to a couple of more contacts. And I went to 2 more of my intelligence contacts. One of them, I think I sent you the one who called Ross out, said, I don't know anything about the Narango, which I come to have realized is the Woomera, kind of right with the Woomera
okay,
base.
so that's the same complex, because you gave me both of those
basically,
names. Okay, all right.
Basically. Yeah. Again, this isn't my thing, folks. So I'm just trying to defend Ross and put the stop to just a really crazy story that is so unbelievably so hard to be true that I had to step in. I just had to step in to see if some of my contacts could give me more information of what this Aussie IT guy said. And then you got the letter from him. from to me that I sent to you that I put out on X about, look, this is what I heard happened in the 80s, a plausible story. Can I say one thing, Jack? I think it's important for us to know, for us to believe as researchers, interested UFO parties, the story has to be somewhat plausible. What keeps me in the Bigfoot arena is that there's never been a credible story from a credible eyewitness on Bigfoot where eyes shoot out of the Bigfoot. It raises and floats above the air. It was dropped in on a UFO. All of the Bigfoot stories since the 60s or even 1,000 years ago with Native American Indians is he stole food. It frightens us, territorial protectionism. It mates. It hunts. It sleeps. It migrates. Those are all, to me, primate or biological behaviors of an animal. So that is plausible to me. And I've never heard anything different. So I'm just making a point that that's what keeps me in the Bigfoot arena. What keeps me with Bigfoot alien stories is some plausibility. A 700-foot craft crashing on a golf course 5 minutes from my house, and nobody in the neighborhood sees it. And they put up a 200,000 square foot building in 2 weeks, or with plans and government funding. And how did they cover up the UFO for those weeks? I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I cannot believe that this Money Penny did not check out this story and just, put the smell check to it.
Okay, so you actually live close to the facility where Moneypenny says no?
No. I'm just making a point that I live close to 3 golf courses. Can you imagine a 700-foot UFO crashing on one of these golf courses and none of my neighbors see it? Come on. It's absolutely ridiculous. So that's when I was sent the email, which totally blew my mind. I've had a couple of people email me like, where did this guy get this from? NNSS, the National Nuclear, Jack, I don't even know what it stood for, but it was an assembly. It's an assembly, underground assembly building for assembling nuclear missiles and bombs, so that if they did explode, it would have the ability to stop the blast radius, so to speak. And I'm like, this is, again, when I start hearing a story of a facility I've never heard of, and I go to research it, and the facility's there, it's up and running, it's underground. They did ground to everything of his email made sense. Let me finish here, and you can ask a question. What made sense to me was how did they put load-bearing beams to put a roof that people could stand on top of a circular UFO that was so big it could have been moved. So we're thinking 50 or 80 feet and bigger. And I sat back in my chair because I don't believe every email. I don't have the hook in my mouth, and I'm like, boy, does that freaking make sense? So that's where at least the story right there was kind of really coming together had some sort of plausibility.
Okay, well, let's go through your original post because there's some interesting things in there. All right. Folks, don't shoot the messenger. This is an insider's account, and it is more believable than a golf course crashed 500-foot UFO. You do not like that story. But I might be talking to Moneypenny. I might get her take on this because she's reached out to me. It'd be interesting to compare that. I actually love it if you and Moneypenny would get together and compare notes. That'd be fun.
Would love to be on with Moneypenny, who has death threats, and I'm like, hey, people, this is crazy. She got the story wrong, but death threats are nuts. I would love to be on with her. Yes.
Well, okay. So your original post, it seems to be a letter to you from this insider. Is that correct?
Seems to be. Yes.
I mean, yes, it is, yes. Right? It is.
Yes. Okay. Email from an insider. Yes.
Okay. And is there anything that you can tell us about this insider?
No, he's not deep in these programs. Was deep in these programs, but I think the word is great, like an ancillary person on the periphery. I never really have known what exactly that is. He's never fully explained it. So that's all I can tell you at this point. But
Is he
the
still in
emails
the?
that we've shared over the pit, no, retired. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he said, or she, I don't know, don't want to
He,
misgender.
he,
He, okay. John, I will put this on the record of what I have believed for over 3 decades, that the Nevada National Security Site's device assembly is not just a nuclear assembly building, but sits on top of a carefully concealed NHI craft recovery. So we're talking about multiple locations here, not just Australia, but we're talking about different incidents and I think even different decades. In the late 1980s, I became aware of an incident involving the crash or forced landing of a cigar-shaped craft approximately 190 feet in length within the boundaries of what is now known as the DAF compound in Area 6. What can you tell us about Area 6?
I have no idea. I don't even know the name of the facility. I don't remember the name until you just said it. It again. It is a it is a area. It is a facility created for the assembly of nuclear bombs, nuclear missiles, with blast capable structure around it to shield it if in case an assembly went awry and the bomb went off, which is what I've heard in the past is very hard to do. A nuclear bomb just doesn't explode on its own, but they do take all the precautions. So, and
Is it close to
this
Area
isn't Nevada.
51?
I believe it is, but
Okay.
I didn't research that. I really didn't. I took this guy for what he said, and I looked it up. I Googled it and saw that it was out in Nevada, and assumed it had to be somewhere in the Nellis Test and Firing Range, which is a massive complex. So
It
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Okay, so the craft was recovered in an operation that was unlike any standard military retrieval I had ever heard of, the whistleblower goes on. Rather than lifting the object away for transport, impossible due to its size, crews dug a long trench directly behind it. With the assistance of heavy cranes and wide straps, they rolled or gently repositioned the craft backward, sliding it into the trench. Within hours, the craft was buried beneath sand. The operation was swift, clinical, and carried out under strict recovery security protocols. For the record, I was not told of the disposition of any of the craft's occupants. Well, if you ever hear about that, I would love to know what happened to those occupants.
Me too.
Years later,
Wouldn't it be great? Everyone's waiting me to tie in the alien interview and those occupants. That's not going to, folks. That's not going to happen. He didn't say anything about the occupants.
well, they may not be directly related, but this operation, because he mentions that this may be a forced landing. If that alien in the alien interview was, recovered from a forced landing, they shot
Not
this object
listening.
down.
Not listening. I don't want anyone to yell at me.
Well, I'm just saying, it could be
I
it
know.
could be part of the same operation. It's very possible the beings could be held at the same facility or some
Oh,
similar facility.
that's very true. Right. Yes. Yeah.
And maybe even the same people involved.
Yep.
So the guy goes on. Here's what I find ironic. Once again, the Department of Energy is involved. Yeah, the DOE comes up a lot. He says, as they are in nearly every major incident where unidentified aerial craft intersect with nuclear weapons programs, the connection is too consistent to ignore. Some have speculated the object could have been a circular craft. Is that Ross's contention? Well, what was the shape of Ross's craft? Do you
I
remember?
don't know. I thought that was a great rhetorically asked question. I don't know what Ross ever said about the shape of that craft.
And then he goes on to talk about the structural issues involved in the shape of the craft and stuff like that.
Yes.
And then he talks about a different incident. He talks about South Australia, the incident that you started talking
That
about.
I asked about. Right. Yep.
And the in the 60s, it impacted into four large sections. These sections were subsequently concealed beneath a purpose-built structure. Do you know anything about that structure? I mean, is it? Yeah, it's on the facility. Is it a hangar? Is it what is it?
I don't know, but I know that there's a decommission. When I looked at just very briefly, um, I think that's where I got this Naraga. In the at the Naraga area, there was a decommissioned two large buildings, huge parking lot, So decommissioned, it's crumbling now. I find that really kind of makes sense. They had it, built the structure, moved it, and the structure goes into disrepair and whatnot. I'm just speculating, folks. Please
So it was
don't shoot the
originally at
messenger.
Naraga or Woomera.
I don't know. I'm just saying when I was looking around on my Google Earth, which I love to do, I saw in that Woomera huge area, two buildings that are decommissioned now, a crumbling parking lot. The buildings were huge, two buildings side by side. Who knows? But it's interesting.
Yeah,
That in
no, it is.
1960s, yeah, it's interesting.
This incident occurred in the 60s, he says, and at a much later date, it was transferred, presumably from Woomera or wherever, to the Pine Gap facility for further handling. And this Pine Gap is this place where you say there's an underground antenna,
Yeah.
which is intriguing. I would love to
Oh,
know what that's all about.
yeah. Hey, internet researchers, help Jack and I out on this one. That would be to me fascinating. Why you would place a very long antenna very deep into the ground and not above ground. I would love to know that answer.
And he finishes with saying concerning the U.S. embassy in Iraq, because that's also one of the speculated, sites of this vehicle. Persistent reports within defense and intelligence circles reference the existence of ancient craft buried in the surrounding desert. The possibility remains that one such object was located, left in the ground with subsequent construction of the embassy, serving both operational and security objectives. And then he talks more about the support
And
beams. He's
it,
very, very interested in the support beams. I was
well,
really
it's a
intrigued
plot.
by.
It's oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, I was really intrigued by his discussion of these ancient craft buried in the surrounding desert. Do you
Well,
have any additional information about
Well, I can
that?
just say this: that the Iraqi embassy is in the metropolitan area of Iraq. Um, I really don't see a UFO that was buried there, and they knew about it in metropolitan Iraq area, urban Iraq, and they built an embassy. It just, again, what is plausible to me as a researcher? A desolate area, yes, because then we would have heard from people saying there's this massive object, and we've never heard that story. If, as far as I can know, as a researcher for 30 years or interested party for 30 years in ufology, I've never heard of a massive, 100, 200, 400-foot object anywhere in the world. So I discount the Iraqi story because it wasn't in a desolate place. And let me finish. Let me also say South Korea, that is a VOR, a very high frequency range for airplanes. My brother-in-law twice a year flies over it as a pilot. You wouldn't put a VOR device for navigation for aircraft above a UFO that could likely go active, or I mean, it just doesn't.
Well,
It
you have a
doesn't.
point. Is that UFOs do often affect electrical,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, that's
yeah.
a good point. That's a good point.
It's circular, but again, you have to support that. And let me just say this about the support beams. It's a plausible part of the story that is triggering me, Jack, to say this guy is right. That the only possibility for Ross Coulthard's story is that they built a structure over it that doesn't have a floor. Does that make sense? I mean, McCormick Place in Chicago, the convention center is like 400,000 square feet. There are no support beams where the cars for the auto show go, really. But you can do that if you don't have anyone standing on that structure. If it's just the roof, my contention is it would have to be in a desolate place or a military base so people don't ask questions. What the hell is that? What is that gymnasium that's huge that we never can go in? What is in there? And the only way you could conceal that would be on some type of military base. So I'm not discounting Ross's claim, especially in America. But if it is this multi-story
Okay, there you
I,
are.
I hope you have post production, right? Yes,
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
fine.
Okay,
I'll edit
okay.
that. Okay, you're talking about the
Yes,
multi-story.
yeah. And this, I don't think Ross ever said this. This is other people's adding to Ross's story and I believe that a building built over a crashed massive US UFO, I don't think, unless there's new construction techniques developed, that it could ever have a floor over it because you need support beams to hold up that floor and to hold up the people, equipment, or whatever is on that. So if there is a structure over one of these UFOs, it's got to be on a military base. It's got to be in a desolate area, an Area 51, a Pine Gap, a Woomera, and it's got to have a gymnasium type structure where there is no floor above the UFO. I don't see any other way of doing this. And so, in that respect, Ross's story might sound plausible, but a floor over it, part of a building with people in it, no, no,
Now, Ross did say this was an object that was too big to be moved, but
right,
obviously, if it was transferred from Woomera to Pine Gap, it was moved. But I guess you could argue that it was too big to be moved for a while. Because
right,
we don't know what period of time elapsed between the crash and the building of whatever structure and the transfer of to Pine Gap, if this is the same object. But other
right.
than that, it seems to tick off all the boxes and to
It
fit
does.
fit what Ross is saying. Now, is the guy that wrote this post to you the same guy that bumped into you in 2018?
Oh no. That
Okay, so these are
Australian guy. Oh yeah,
so these are two points of corroboration for this story. You have two different sources
Thank you for saying
confirming
that.
confirming this. Okay, that
Yeah,
do
that IT guy I've never spoken to again after. I think we had one email. We were going to talk about UFOs and we never connected again. But that was it. No, that one meeting with them with the IT guy from Aussie that was a one and done. And this guy that emailed me the story on Woomera, the DAF site is a totally different person. Yeah.
okay,
Thanks for
okay.
thanks for pointing that out.
And do any of your other whistleblowers or insiders have any insight into any of this?
No, the DAF site gentleman was the only one that was willing to actually go on record or had any knowledge of this. Uh, and I find it when he said cigar shape, another box tick like, oh, that's interesting. Why do we ever dis? Why are we always thinking oval, round, round, round? And Occam's razor. How would you conceal a massive cylindrical object, you know, until you could come up with a game plan? And I want to talk about this. Dig a trench. You gently lower it into this trench. No, I don't know if this trench was 20 feet, 50 feet. I have no idea. But boy, that sounds like a really plausible, simplistic way that the military took care of this down craft. Here's my other point. Now, what do? You want to start to examine this craft. You want to build an underground structure around this craft, right? This is what I find interesting in the story. Now, all of a sudden, years later, this site happens to be the perfect site to build the DAF Center, the Nuclear Assembly Center, and they've got to do ground testing and go underneath, and they're going to build bunkers. And the bunkers, folks, the concrete bunkers, is for the nuclear bombs. What a freaking perfect cover story! So I'm going to tell you something. You want to talk about not only checking all the boxes, checking the plausibility box, but checking the box that makes complete, basic, non-crazy sense with its cover story. I don't know. I think this guy hit the jackpot. But
Ross?
yeah. So just to say that cigar shaped, simple trench. Now the cover story comes. It's still there. It's still being used. It's still desolate area. Bing, 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 bing. Sorry. So interesting. Why are we to think that only one big UFO crashed and it was in Australia? I don't. I think that it is plausible that other large UFOs have crashed at some point in the past, and this may be one of them out at the NNSS facility.
Okay, well, one final question. I know you
Sure.
received some pushback on all of this. You're talking about your hand getting slapped and some curse words used. Can you tell us about that?
Well, when you uh, am I handled? Yeah, I think I've made a point of that to some degree. I think the men that have come forward to me, especially with this alien interview information in S4, I think they have a justifiable. I'm trying to get my words right. I think they have a justifiable right to at least be told what I'm going to put out that may compromise them, may compromise some of the things that they talk about, may compromise some aspects of this alien phenomenon program. I think they have a justifiable right to that. And when I sometimes go too far in their eyes, I get yelled at. And I got yelled at by the guy who talked about Ross. And you have that snippet of what he called Ross. I'm not going to say it on you know on the internet because I respect Ross, but that guy slapped my hand like, come to us first and come to me first and so on and so forth. So yeah, I got a little bit of pushback, not from the guy who gave me the NNSS DAF center, but certainly the Ross Coulthard guy who was very angered about Ross for this and for other things, I'm assuming. So yeah, so I am handled to some degree. Not in a weird, bizarre, Svengoolie way, but hey, look, we've helped you this far. Run stuff by us. I don't think that's unreasonable for them to request.
Well, of course, if you did run it by them, they just say no. So,
Well, sometimes, yeah, true. You're right.
but I mean, that's not to say you shouldn't do it because you're getting your phones hacked and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So, I
right.
mean,
It's a respect issue, and I understand that. Hey, John Stewart's our guy. How many times have I been told that? Oh, John Stewart, that's my guy. That's our yeah. And yes, I think it's a respect issue, and I need to know that and be cognizant of that in the future. Sometimes when you go too far, you don't know you're going too far because you're too busy going too far. You don't realize, oh shit, so.
all right. Well, thank you for coming on the show and explaining all that to us. And I may have some further follow-up questions for you. And I look forward to people's reactions to this. And what are you working on now? And where can people find you if they do want to ask you questions?
Yeah, I'm back on X at John Stewart IL. And got another meeting today. The Hollywood big production alien interview thing has got major legs because they want to, I'm going to use Hollywood language here. They want to piggyback on what they think is going to be a lot of positive groundswell and attention to the Bob Lazar S4 movie. And so again, and I don't know if people know this, but I have communicated with Bob Lazar
Oh,
about
yeah,
five,
really?
yeah, oh yeah, about five or six emails. He helped me with the lunch, how lunch is served at S4, which mimicked or which repeated a story what I was told by somebody else. Bob, said he never knew Stanton Willett. Bob's been just very gracious to me. I've had about, like I said, five to six emails. I've never burned that bridge, and emailed him 24 million times. Bob Lazar is a nice human being and a gentleman, and I just find it. I'm grateful to him because his movie might probably propel my documentary to get onto a main stage like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or Apple. I've got a meeting today at 2:00
Oh, cool, man.
with the producer
Congratulations.
again. These guys get busy. Yeah, I'm not saying it's happening. These guys get busy, then they pull back and they're like, okay, back on the John Stewart project. I'm going to say one last thing. What is the problem after 6 years with all my info? It was either Ross, Stephen Greer, Eric Davis, or Eric was it Dr. Weinstein? Eric Weinstein, is that his name?
Yeah,
The physicist.
yeah, there is a
Okay.
Weinstein or a,
One of those gentlemen made a great statement. I want everyone to realize that, which is about my video, an actual, allegedly authentic off-planet extraterrestrial. It's so bizarre that it's often hard for regular people to to metabolize the visual of seeing that creature and letting themselves say this thing might be real. And the word metabolize, which what I think was absolutely perfect, and we've seen this in Hollywood. Jack, I think I said this on your program. What did the president of Hulu say when he saw this? Of Discover Channel. And I'm not doing inside information. He went, "This can't be. This is crazy." Hollywood doesn't do crazy. It does creepy, weird, bizarre. It does gotcha. It does, a spooky. It does cliffhangers. It doesn't do, it doesn't do this. This is bizarre. This is creep. What's the word? This is too unbelievable. And so that's the pushback. No, there's not one person, one producer, one Hollywood executive that has discredited my work, the information that we've shown. It's all like, you know, how do I put this out? Look what the alien autopsy flat got. This can't be possible. And so we have to jump that hurdle.
well,
So,
good
and
luck,
that's
man. I
that's the
hope
hurdle.
that happens. That'd
I do
be,
too.
I mean, that'd be great for you, and it'd be great for the UFO
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah. Finally put this to bed, and then I can go on with life. And, you won't, people won't have to see me opining and coming on. And yeah, I really would like to put this whole alien interview thing to bed in the can and write the book. I think the book is, I think people are going to be like, because I'm going to talk about podcasters, the backstabbing, the drama, the Agatha Christie, who done it of this whole 6 years, the government, my whistleblowers, selling it to Hollywood, which could be a whole nother book. I think my account, my journey of this, I am telling folks this. It is going to blow your mind, and I am going to lay the tea on everyone because that's just what's going to happen, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'd love to lecture about this too around the world and tell people of my journey. I just want to get this documentary, another new professional documentary in the can. That's my pipe dream right now. And it's going to
Well,
happen. I know it's going to happen. So,
again, I wish you the best of luck with that, and I hope you come on the show and tell us how it's going.
okay, will do.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, John.
Okay, Jack.